the other thing I wanted to mention, this might surprise you, but in terms of these sessions that you've been part of, this is our 26th session. I just counted them in terms of counting the retreat and that. So, and it's interesting, as I was reflecting on this being the 26th time that we've offered these free experiences, on one level, I feel like, wow, we have really covered a lot of ground and offered so much, so many kind of tools and strategies and ideas and great guest speakers and so on. But then on the other hand, the same exact time, I feel like we've barely touched the surface. Like we've gone like this far, maybe. I mean, that's the truth that I feel. I am just thinking, gosh, we haven't covered hardly anything in terms of what mindfulness and character strengths really can offer. My hope is that most of you who have been part of a lot of these sessions would feel the opposite to that. That like, no, I feel like I've gotten a lot, and I'm really making good advancements personally, and since the beginning, and so on. So anyway, so that's kind of a little a dialectic that I'm kind of feeling in myself of those kind of opposing realities. So that said, today's experience, if we were to give it a title, I would title it the two-door approach to our mental health. And I'll be explaining that two-door metaphor in a moment. But to set up today's session, why don't we actually start with what you might remember from a few weeks ago with a mindful pause. Do you remember that meditation? You know, it's about 15 seconds long. And the first step is to break through our autopilot mind and to just be mindful of our breathing for about 10 or 15 seconds. And the second step is to turn to our strengths. So let's do that together. I'll lead us in this very brief meditation to kind of move us along here. So begin by bringing your attention to your in-breath and your out-breath, letting everything else go. Just feeling the in-breath and the out-breath in your body. And then asking yourself this question: which of my character strengths might I bring forth right now? And as you open your eyes, if you haven't already, perhaps you can bring forth one of your strengths in your thinking in some way, in your actions in some way, jotting it down to use after today's experience, and so on. And so that meditation is all about pausing from the busyness of our daily lives and sort of clearing the way, clearing the path within us for our strengths. Because so often there are so many obstacles to our character strengths, so many things that are getting in the way, so much mental clutter that we don't even think to use them. But when we take time to just pause, even for such a short amount of time, it gives us sort of a fighting chance to just maybe our mindfulness can become aware of a strength to use. And who knows what will pop up? Something quite remarkable, perhaps. Something surprising for you, maybe a lower strength for you, like perseverance or bravery or honesty, or perhaps one of your higher strengths, kindness or critical thinking or love. And then you can bring them forth in some way in your thinking, in your actions, your speech, and so on. So in a few short months, 3 short months, we have felt such a range of emotions and suffering. We felt isolation and grief and uncertainty, the unknown. We felt pain. We've come more in touch with racism We felt anger and outrage, guilt, perhaps shame, disappointment, fear, sadness. And we could keep going on all the mental anguish and emotional anguish that we have felt in these last 3 months. And so what do psychologists say to do with that? Well, on the most basic level, one of the main approaches is sit with it. And maybe you've heard that before. That was a phrase that I always used when I was in the psychotherapy world, leading psychotherapy with groups of people and individuals. We would often say to sit with the feeling, to sit with the discomfort. But what really does that mean, to sit with the discomfort? Well, in a lot of ways, it means, one way at least, is we breathe with the discomfort. We feel our in-breath and our out-breath with whatever's going on inside of us. And it could be outrage. It could be fear. It could be disappointment. And we breathe with the feeling. Why? Because we're giving the feeling space. Because it's so easy to get locked up on that particular feeling. It's so easy to distract from that feeling and all the wisdom that it has to teach us. So we can start to think about something else. We distract from it, and we forget about it. We move on. Or sometimes we might exert it out and we punch the pillow. That used to be an early approach to anger management, to go punch the pillow. But then we realize that's just actually rehearsing anger when we do that. And we are quick to not give feelings space because we escape from them. We go and we drink a lot, so our mind becomes hazy and we don't care about the feelings. Or we eat a lot. We eat a lot of snacks, or we overeat our meal, or whatever it might be. We feel other things instead, like feeling bloated and stuffed. We're quick to deny the feelings and pretend that they're not there, say that they're not there. And then the other end, we can also, some of us might be quick to be like the quick fix approach. Let's immediately resolve it and just say, oh, it's okay, it's fine. So all of these approaches and others are not giving the feeling space. It's almost as if we're wanting to give the feeling its own breath. Allow the feeling to breathe. Allow the feeling to be there, to see what it has to teach us, to see what insights might come, or just to learn from it, because we're feeling it for some important reason, perhaps. Certainly, I'm not saying this is always easy, by the way, to do. So for some situations, we might feel it and breathe with it in small dosages. Maybe we can breathe with it for 20 seconds. Maybe we can breathe with it for 10 minutes. So we do what each of us is able to do. But the point here also is to not try to change the feeling. You know, feelings aren't something that we just apply logic to and we think through it and we overcome it that way. Instead, we take the approach of a feeling approach. We allow the feeling, whatever it is, to be. And what happens is when we allow that feeling the space, this is the beginning of acceptance. And we could even say it's the beginning of an active acceptance. That we're actively allowing and saying, it's okay that I am feeling this emotion or these emotions. And that's very different, by the way, than a passive resignation. It's an active acceptance. So when anger arises, we breathe with it. When fear arises, we breathe with it. And if we take this a little bit further, we'll practice it in a moment, but if we take this a little bit further, we can notice something else sometimes. So that's important in and of itself, first of all, is breathing with the suffering, breathing with the pain. But sometimes what we can also notice is that there are these dialectics going on. And like I was just saying earlier with my experience with this being the 26th session, that there's these dialectical thoughts or seemingly opposing forces that can coexist at the same time. It's fascinating that opposites can coexist right there within us. I mean, isn't that amazing? Two things that almost seem to be or are quite different coexist. And that we really, in some ways, if we take this philosophically, we need both to coexist. We can't have one without the other. So, for example, mindfulness is both easy and hard at the same time. That's a dialectic. It's the easiest thing in the world to just pay attention and see that I'm holding up my hand, my left hand. We can all be mindful of that. But then it's simultaneously very, very hard to breathe with deep suffering, horrifying pain. That's a very hard part of mindfulness. So mindfulness is both. Character strengths, the fact that they're both inward and outward, that can be a dialectic. Our COVID realities, all the COVID realities that we've all been facing and struggling with, and there's so many. The one that is probably hitting a lot of people right now is it too soon to return, or it's not soon enough to return? For some people, they couldn't get going sooner, and for other people, they feel we should stay in a lot more. I'm not saying one is right or wrong. Every situation is different, but there are these opposing forces, opposing realities. Our physical isolation as well as social connection at the same time. In our isolation, many of us have connected far more than we had before. There can be pain, but at the same time, transformation. Lots of conflicts that we're spotting in our family, lots of problems, lots of discomfort, but then also, hopefully, lots of character strengths spotted at the exact same time. And in hearing from a lot of Black leaders in the last couple of weeks, often a theme is this, that they observe what's going on in the streets, and they observe what happened with George Floyd and others, and they say, which I feel as well, they say total heartbreak that they feel, total painful heartbreak, and at the same time, total hope about what could happen in the future for the United States and other countries. So it's these opposing forces that we can be present to and that we can breathe with, and that we can accept that these are happening right now. Acceptance doesn't necessarily mean that we want it to happen or that we're trying to keep something to happen. It's just that we're accepting that reality as it is in this particular present moment. I personally have felt very, I'll say, emotions of sadness, but also outrage, fury by some people that I've witnessed doubling down with deaf ears and closed hearts to what's going on in the United States. But simultaneous to that, I have felt great pride and excitement for so many people and who are making shifts and trying to improve, seeing things in a different way. I could say, looking back at my own personal family, I can be, on one level, embarrassed by some members in my family who have espouted racist comments. I can be and do feel embarrassed by that. And at the same time, those people, I do love those people. And I can feel proud of those same people for good things that they've done in their lives. So that's another dialectic, these opposing forces that we can name. So all of these examples that I'm sharing, from COVID to racism and anti-racism to whatever anybody's feeling right now, this is all fodder for our mindfulness. Mindfulness is what we'll say the first doorway one. It's awareness. It all starts with awareness. So I want to offer this two-door metaphor then. So mindfulness is the first door. That awareness just gets us in to noticing what's going on. But what happens is we open that first door, that doorway of awareness, and we then see there's a whole hallway of doors in front of us. And what that hallway of doors represents, that mindfulness takes us to, is choices. A whole hallway of choices. I wouldn't even know to guess what the number of choices are. But maybe you could see that clearly in your mind as you picture the hallway of doors that mindfulness takes you to. Now, some of those doors, if you turn the doorknob and open them, some of those are choices of healthy behavior, some are unhealthy behavior. Some is action, some is inaction, not doing anything. Some are character strengths choices. Some are signature strengths choices. But the point is, we get to be empowered and to make that choice. It starts with mindfulness. Then we get to act. So if you're sitting with and you're feeling anger, you breathe with it, we begin to see all the different choices. For some people, right after they feel anger, they choose a doorway that leads them to stomp their feet and yell and scream. Certainly, I've done that before. And that same person and other people choose a different door, and it's to exercise when they feel angry. Others turn to self-regulation. They practice yoga or mindfulness. Others turn to the door of curiosity, and they investigate their anger. Maybe love of learning, to learn from what is their anger saying right now. Maybe to investigate what's underneath the anger. Anger is almost always covering up other emotions. So why am I really angry? They say, using that second doorway of curiosity and love of learning. And they see that I'm feeling helpless. That's what the pain really is. It's not so much anger, it's helplessness. But they would have never gotten there without mindfulness and then using one of their strengths. Maybe it's fear. Maybe it's sadness underneath, hopelessness. And then that feeling can be felt. Or as we say, sit with it and breathe with it. Not necessarily trying to change it and eradicate the hopelessness feeling, because that's what's going on in you. So we can name the feeling. We can be gentle with ourselves for having the feeling. So at this time of COVID and post-COVID for many people, and actions of anti-racism and observing racism and observing the news and just struggling that we don't have a job, all of these things, we can apply this two-door approach for our mental health, because the numbers are astonishing in terms of how we are being impacted mentally in the world. And so we desperately need very practical, concrete strategies like this two-door approach to help ourselves in the moment. And so that's what you practiced just a moment ago with the mindful pause, 15 seconds. And now I'd like to move us into a meditation where we essentially are doing the mindful pause, but expanding much upon it. So I do want to invite you to challenge yourself with this meditation. We did the easy one first of a simple mindful pause, but now let's do a challenging one. So I want to invite you to, before we even start focusing on our breathing and grounding in our breathing, invite you to consider some kind of racist act that you have yourself witnessed, yourself experienced, maybe seen on TV. Could be something atrociously horrifying. Could be something that you would say is small or minor. And so that will be the focus here. But first, I want to invite us to ground in our breathing, which means to really feel the foundation and the strength of our in-breath and our out-breath. Really connecting with yourself, connecting with your power, your strength, just right there. So we breathe slowly and deeply into our belly. We feel that groundedness of mindfulness that we have come home to ourselves with mindfulness. Home to this place in ourselves that has so many character strengths. Some that we've used quite a bit, some that have been underused. So feeling that in-breath and out-breath now and as we move forward. And I invite you to bring forth the racist act that you named just a moment ago. Bring that forth to your mind. Perhaps see yourself or see the act playing out. And be aware of your feelings. Be aware of the afflictive emotions that you feel. Because I want to invite you to breathe with them. Right here in the safety of our community here. Amidst the solidness of your mindfulness and your 24 character strengths. I want to invite you to breathe with your emotion. Specifically, the afflictive emotion that you have right now, that you can feel. And breathe with it for, if you can do it for 10 seconds, 20 seconds, what you feel you can do at this moment, or keep going. Not trying to change the feeling, but instead to give you space. Give your emotion space. You might even say to yourself, it's okay. It's okay I can feel it. I can breathe with it. And as you give the feeling space, you can also take notice if there are other opposing forces that you notice in yourself, like some of the examples I gave earlier. So allowing whatever you notice to just be for a moment. There can be something freeing about not having to restrict yourself or control or change, but a freedom in just letting be. And so for many of us, we might realize that we need to spend more time than this in the feeling with, the breathing with phase. And so we can return to that breathing with later today or tomorrow or other times as we continue to process things and move forward. But I want to also give you the space to consider what might be the next doorway. So if you've opened the doorway of mindfulness, and now there's a hallway of doors in front of you, what door might you open now? And how might that door that you choose, be of benefit to you